Press play. He's the voice of the intersection of marketing, tech, and popular culture. Thinking is his commodity. DJ, data punk, stylish sock collector, and author of the book Disruptive Marketing. Jeffrey Cologne is your host of Disruptive FM, the marketing podcast for eccentric minds.
If it's Friday, it's another episode of Disruptive FM, the marketing podcast for eccentric minds. I'm your host, Jeffrey Cologne, broadcasting from the Emerald City of Seattle. This is episode 49, and on this week's show, we talk about the unbranding of branding and what that means for brands. We also talk about millennials wanting purpose in their work. But what does purpose mean? If we ask a number of different people, it's going to mean different things depending on their age. And culture and content, not just content and not just culture, but culture and content are the way to connect in 21st century business. We'll take a quick look at that and what that means for all of us as we move through the 21st century. All that and more on this week's episode 49 of Disruptive FM. Make sure you tweet to us on Twitter. You can reach us at Disruptive FM, or you can just participate in the conversation using hashtag Disruptive FM. Also, you can check us out online at disruptivefm.net. And of course, if you want to check out where I'm speaking around the globe in 2016, you can go to jeffreycologne.net/speaking. That's Jeffrey with a G, Cologne with a C, .net/speaking. Hey, before I get into this week's podcast, I wanted to give a big, can I say that 3 times? Big shout out to Spreaker. If you are wanting to get into podcasting, you really need to check Spreaker out. Spreaker. They have all of the software to record a show, all of the storage to host your shows, all of the API tools to promote your show. I've been using Spreaker since 2012. Great company from Italy. The reason I'm bringing them up on this particular show, I had some issues with, or what I thought I had some issues with their recording software. So I tweeted to them, and it was like heaven on earth, their customer relationship management. I mean, they were like, send us a screenshot, record a piece of audio, send us the snippet, let us know what your input-output looks like. Let's get on Skype. Let's figure some things out. I mean, really great service. I think that there's a lot that big tech companies could learn from some of these mid-sized tech firms, if you catch my drift. So big shout out to Spreaker. Check them out. They're at Spreaker.com. And you can also check out their iOS, Android, or Windows Phone app. If you want to record a show on your handset, you can do that as well. You don't necessarily need to download the desktop studio. So check them out. Really great outfit, and really happy to be using them to record my vocals. And then I usually take that and export the file and put it into GarageBand and do a post-edit. But just such a great desktop interface and user experience. And I host my show there as well, which syncs into iTunes, the Google Play Store for hosting on Google, SoundCloud, YouTube. They have all these APIs so you can host on Spreaker and spread yourself across the social web. It's wonderful. The future of branding is debranding or unbranding. Now, what do we mean by this? There's an article in Fast Company about this. Let's backtrack for a second. Let's go all the way back to the late 90s, when many of us were jumping online using Yahoo or AOL to surf the web. It gave us a little bit more control. Actually, it gave us a lot of control. We had a lot more control than we had in the past. When we had this control, it changed the way that we appreciated advertising. We actually stopped appreciating it. We started to say, this is not good stuff. It's interruptive. And it is not very interesting because a lot of it didn't represent our interests. So what companies started to do, what brands started to do is, hey, let's get a little bit more immersive and camouflage ourselves so that we can make people think that they're actually reading content when in fact they're actually reading an advertisement. And we called that native advertising. You know, the only way to be truly subversive in the 21st century is to buy less stuff. Turn purchasing power into the power to leave untouched what you don't need. Because honestly, we've reached a saturation point. Let me ask you a question. When you buy things, does it really make you happy? Probably not. This is why marketing can be quite interesting moving forward, because it's not necessarily selling anything anymore. It is actually inspiring people to do things. I know what you're asking. How are we going to make revenue? We'll save that for another episode. But we are ultimately suffocating in our own consumer purchases. Many of us are unhappy. But just as consumption became a way of life, so too can non-consumption become a way of life. And this is where debranding comes into play. And let me read this paragraph from the Fast Company piece to explain. As branding is fundamentally just a form of communication, it will never disappear. And it shouldn't. But the focus will shift. It will shift from branded products to branded places. Stores and their owners who select and sell the products they like. Many of these places take the Berlin-based store Original Unverpackt, will eschew packaging and advertising. Back to the traditional shopkeeper responsible for measuring bulk food and acting as an advocate for his or her products. Back to the real Dr. Browns, Uncle Ben's, and Aunt Jemima's. Instead of brands, real people and real tones of voice will become the interface between consumers and products again. That's the heart of debranding. And it's totally in line with today's networked society. Traditionally, branding is based on the idea of what differentiates a company from competitors. A brand grows by billing itself as different, by isolating itself from others. Apple took that quite literally with Think Different to great success. But increasingly in the internet age, consumers are comfortable with the idea that everything is interconnected. So what distinguishes brands is less important than what brings things and people together. Whether your iPhone can talk to your Prius, or Cortana can help identify an issue in your Volvo, for instance. Or whether you can read articles from disparate sources in one place, like on Facebook. The brand that screams the loudest no longer commands the most attention. The one that offers something genuinely useful does. So this is interesting because this really ties at the heart of a section in my upcoming book, Disruptive Marketing, What Growth Hackers, Data Punks, and Other Hybrid Thinkers Can Teach Us About Navigating the New Normal. Out July 15th on Kindle and August 9th on hardcover and audio. Pre-order your copy today at Amazon. Barnes & Noble, IndieBound, or where all books are sold. What's fascinating about unbranding is that instead of throwing money at more branded content campaigns, what unbranding or debranding is doing is it's going back to the original source or notion of what a brand means. By fine-tuning a product's quality, design, and durability. So what we should be doing, let's say you're in the shoe business, you should become a producer of shoes again instead of surrogate spirituality. It will make your life and consumers' lives simpler. No one wants to know that you're necessarily this inspiring spiritual guru. They want a good quality product. I think there's a lot we could learn from Patagonia. They definitely go the unbranded route. Don't throw a new product on the market if it's not intrinsically better and more durable than what already exists. We don't need more branding. The world is already a noisy place. We need fewer, better quality products. Because ultimately, with good word of mouth, people will find you. Millennials are looking for purpose in their lives and their jobs. But what does that mean? Well, if we asked two different groups at work what purpose meant, we'd get two different answers. Let's start with the 30-year-old at your company, or someone who's around that age, let's say. Man, woman, doesn't matter. If we asked what they wanted out of their career and their job and their company, they probably would say, I want purpose. But what does purpose mean? And they would answer, well, I want to know that my company gives back to society. That it actually creates and fosters a better world. That it has good hiring practices. And that it ultimately doesn't just want to build and destroy and build again. If we asked someone who was in their 50s the same question, what is purpose? They may answer that very differently. They may say, purpose is getting revenue to $10 billion. Purpose is building a sustainable business. Purpose is innovating and out-innovating our competition. Now that innovation section, I think that would cross over into both generations. But if we were to go back and restate what purpose means to millennials and what purpose means to the boomer generation, there's not a lot of crossover there. In fact, the two sides couldn't be further apart. And this is where we're having issues in management in this day and age. Because I'll admit I'm in Gen X, but Gen Xers and Yers don't even know how to inspire younger people. They don't get them. They say, hey, we'll throw some more money your way and maybe a promotion. And the younger person's like, yeah, whatever. And they're like, oh, you entitled brat. Because they don't understand what motivates them. What is your purpose in the 21st century purpose-driven economy? To me, it's about making the world more transparent. And that doesn't mean we're making the world more transparent through let's mine everyone's data and break privacy laws. But more transparent in the sense of, hey, let's bare our souls for a second. Let's be honest about who we are as a company, our companies, and what we ultimately want to provide the world at large. That's what I mean by being transparent, or authentic might be another term that we use. I highly doubt that would be the case with many people who are older. I think they may say, hey, I want to be authentic as well. They really wouldn't uncover themselves. They really wouldn't bare their soul. They wouldn't show that they are at fault. I think younger people would be more willing to say, hey, I make mistakes and here's what they are, because they want to learn. And that learning is what ultimately leads to a more of a growth mindset. And we know where that can take us. So ask yourself, what is your purpose? And what is your company's purpose? And does your purpose align with your company's purpose? If you don't work for someone else and you work for yourself, are you driving that vision? Or are you just trying to make ends meet? Curious for your thoughts on this topic, make sure you tweet to us at Disruptive FM, or just lay it out there in social media using the hashtag DisruptiveFM. And when I mean lay it out there, lay it out there. Be as transparent as possible. Let's get real. Culture and content are the way to connect in 21st century business. Now, what do we mean by this? Because there's a lot of questions here. What do we mean by connecting culture and content? Well, let me read a quote for you. The quote goes like this: "It would be nice if all the data which sociologists require could be enumerated, because then we could run them through IBM machines and draw charts as the economists do. However, not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted." So who said that? I know many of you probably will say, yes, that's a quote from Albert Einstein. Aha! Many people attribute that quote to him, but it actually is William Bruce Cameron who said that. And how did William Bruce Cameron try to solve for the fact that not everything can be quantified? Well, he turned to something called hybrid thinking. What is hybrid thinking? Besides something that I push heavily for marketers to adopt, it's a multifaceted and disciplined person who uses data, experiences, creativity, and ingenuity to try to understand various facets of the world and how they fit together. A good example of a hybrid thinker is John Lasseter, the co-founder of Pixar and creator of Toy Story, who fuses technology, art, and storytelling into something new. When I wrote my upcoming book, Disruptive Marketing, I looked at modern marketing not from the lens of a pure data analyst, which too much of marketing is made up of these days, but at the intersection of marketing, technology, popular culture, fashion, and design. Marketing is truly a hybrid discipline, and when modern marketers realize it goes beyond the numbers or the creative big idea into a true integration, the better we'll all be in our emerging world, where we have more problems to solve than simply trying to increase market share or build revenue. There's a large underbelly of our industry that has been caught, Freudian slip, taught from day one in business, the linear protocol in life to do steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you'll get results 5 and 6. But that's not working out too well for them. Even when they say they have the correct consumer data at their disposal. So why is this? Well, for one, the problem with relying solely on consumer insights for marketing is that marketing messages never reach individual consumers without the intervention of culture. Every society and group made up of either 3 or 3 million people has a way of life, a complex matrix of manners, styles of dress, norms for social behaviors, rituals, values, and language. This matrix influences how messages are received by individuals in a way that is hard to quantify and fit into a strategic marketing plan. Cultural insights demonstrate where consumer behavior may be changing. This makes it difficult for a lot of people who want to know definitive answers in the world of marketing. However, if we had definitive answers, if we always knew the answer to everything that we were going to do, we wouldn't have to experiment as much as we do in this world. These insights point the way toward massive shifts in values, attitudes, and behaviors that are perking just underneath the surface of our day-to-day lives. These trends do not show up in quantitative market research because individuals may not be conscious of these social and cultural tensions. Cultural marketing pays attention to what is going on with the human condition more than what is simply going on in lines of business. When you pay attention to lines of business, it's easy to issue content. When you pay attention to culture, you're paying attention to the always changing and always evolving human condition. Marketers need to be careful observers of the culture around them so that they can anticipate what issues will be important in the future. This was the main complaint of many towards certain politicians this past election season. The lack of empathy of understanding the real issues facing the world: poverty, racism, sexism, gender, and wage inequality. Focusing on cultural movements allows marketers to forecast ways in which the markets they serve are changing. For example, marketers do not pay attention to the growing use of female empowerment and how these are creating changes in consumer behavior. They could be left behind when this movement grows and changes the marketplace, including both women and men's perceptions on messages that in the past may have been perceived as clever, that now come across as obtuse and blatantly sexist. So it's interesting. What culture do you ingrain in your own marketing messages? And remember, there are cultures everywhere. So even if you're doing what you would consider boring B2B marketing, well, there is business culture. There is technology culture. There is information technology culture. There's analytical culture. How are you integrating that into your marketing messages? Because if you go the route of saying, well, I'm going to take the unbranded approach when it comes to communicating. I'm going to actually just talk about what our company is capable of doing, rather than talking about culture. You're going to have a harder time connecting with people. And ultimately, it's people that still make business decisions in our society. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Disruptive FM. You can reach out to us on Twitter at Disruptive FM. You can reach out to me personally on Twitter. I'm at DJGEOFFE. Of course, check us out online, disruptivefm.net. Check me out online, jeffreycologne.net. For all my list of speaking engagements, you can check out my author page on Amazon or go to jeffreycologne.net/speaking. We'll catch you next time.
You've been listening to an episode of Disruptive FM, the marketing podcast for eccentric minds. Remember to subscribe to the show on iTunes. Purchase a copy of Jeffrey's latest book, Disruptive Marketing, on Kindle, hardcover and audio. Signing off from the city of Seattle. Press pause.